What happens if the only thing that is going to save you is the consequence or weapons from the daughter of Zion in heaven? This is what we're dealing with today. And with Elon Musk and the amassing of the satellites that can destroy you and the earth, as well as the viruses and the bankrupting of the world, it's very important that we can quickly bring everyone down to a level playing field and understand that you have to behave yourselves, because the consequence is going to be something that you never intended. You will come back as a lower animal. You can come back. We can have you adrifted in space. But I've already done a longer piece on this, and it drifted, so I want to make sure I deal with this. I did not find out about this. You're going to see it in the Lost Book of Nostradamus. I did not find out about this until until January, the end of January of this year. When I saw that section, watching The Prophet, that is found, that was a movie, and it linked it right up to the Lost Book of Nostradamus, as well as to the Hand of God and your next life is a broken lobster or some other broken animal that happened in 2018 linked to Meghan Markle. So let's take a good look at this, because you're going to see the symbology. Look at this and notice this is Z for Zion. This kind of looks like the yin yang or the 69. Notice this here, right? Tells you who did it. Here it's Pisces, and here's the Cancer, 69. That was my church number for years at St. Paul's, as well as my teacher number when I was first at Palm Beach County, when Jupiter was in Leo in 2002, 2003. Excuse me, not Jupiter was in Leo then. When I was at St. Paul's from 2004 to 2007, which was basically the same that I was at within the school district there. I left there in 2006, actually. So let's move up. Notice it looks a lot like Pisces. And we're going to be renaming this. Let's go in and see what God is showing us. Remember, there's that kind of yin-yang sign. There's this sign. There's this sign. There's this. It sort of reminds you of the Pisces, but not quite. And there's the 69 for Cancer. What is God telling you? We have to change this too. There is that yin-yang sign. This is all for Cancer. Remember, I have the 2 Master 11s, my name, my birthday, and Lynn is a 2. My mother is July the 10th. She is a 2. My son is July the 11th. He weighed 7 pounds 11 ounces. My daughter is July the 22nd, at the tail end, the last hours of Cancer, and she weighed 8 pounds 11 ounces. Notice he is replacing the lobster here. I did not catch all of this until I caught, let's see if I can find it. And you can see this is Jupiter and Scorpio, Meghan Markle's birthday. She's the spotted lamb. We've already seen it online. The Hand of God. This needed to be cut out and moved forward by then. This is the Nazarene, the long hair, the androgynous one in heaven, the great God over the great book, and I am underneath him. This had to happen, and there's now the new tree of life, the 4th house, and the broken lobster. I'm going through this very quickly because I have a longer piece on it. Etymology for lobster, locus. We are looking at an Apollo phenomenon. It's just Apollo. As it turns out, the animal spirit, I happen to be the golden retriever, and it was the year of the dog that year. But if we go to the next year, you can see that during Cancer, it is the lobster. Every 12 years, it's going to be the lobster. Every 12 years, it's going to be the golden retriever. If we go back to this date here in 1958, right before the year I was born, it's the golden retriever and it's the lobster. So, what the prophecy, and I work with men, so for those of you that think I'm like this raving feminist, the men are also raving feminists. Jesus was a raving feminist in many regards, and it's not like the LGBTQ kind. He wasn't a feminist, he worked for God. Okay, Nostradamus is working for God. Nostradamus is a Sagittarius. I'm a Sagittarius. There's a lot, Comey was a Sagittarius. We all worked together. But what they need you to understand is that you think, oh no, this can't possibly be. And I make it clear what the problem is further on, later on in this thing. So when did I notice this, and when did the issue of the virus explode onto the public in order to shut you down? Because I needed to act, but also because they were already putting out a vaccine with nanotechnology in it. And this virus came from the LGBTQ have been involved in this. Let's come into here. Oh, can I get on? Oh, I have to get out of me first. Let's put me on pause. So everything began to come together last spring after a 6-month attack by transgender men and homosexual men on my life. And you can see it, it's online, it's in person, it's harassing, it's nonstop. And they're all involved in the occult. Most of them are also listed in the UK, but not exclusively so. And some of them were also African American, and they're linking with, or they're Haitian, and they are linking with gay men. So this is when I found it. The job for gay men is to keep women in check so that straight men can get what they want. So January the 21st, the very beginning of Aquarius. This is, I'm watching it on Pluto, and I'm shocked because all of a sudden now, oh, this was Pluto, and I was now watching the prophet, or the prophecy, and this is a scene from the prophecy. And as soon as I saw that, where it says Lieutenant to Gabriel, and as soon as I saw that, look at that, there's Cancer, there's the 69, there's the yin yang, there's my school sign, there is my church sign that I had for a while, there's the moon. All right? And this is also the archangel that's over life, and it's feminine. The real identity is feminine. And all of a sudden, my monitors, Trump, everyone realizes that it's all linked up. And they realize that they're not playing. This is their next life. And that is when the issue of shutting everybody down, the virus comes up, and Elon Musk goes out with his satellites, and all hell is breaking loose. So I'm just going to say one more thing to let you know, because I talk about Amos back there and where they can get you. In 2001, I had already opened up my case with the Law Society, and God had already told me, okay, this is going to happen, and forced me to come out with what I knew at that point, because I began laying down the prophecy publicly in high-level places, because God said, okay, you're going to get those 3 judges, you're going to have this, you're going to have that. And then I saw the correlation. I was looking for when was a good time with the Union of North America. Jupiter was in Leo. God told me to go look. Camp David Accord, German unification. different things like that. And then all of a sudden, I think it was D-Day 2, I could be wrong, but there are all these things where we have Jupiter going on in Leo, and then all of a sudden, it dawns on me that there's a war, and there's an escalating pattern of war in the Middle East. So I begin predicting this, and this is in early June of 2001. All of a sudden now I'm moving straight over into prophecy, which is what God said was going to happen. To make a long story short, when we say that God can get you wherever you're at, there is no place within the kingdom of heaven that you can be. And that's why the book of Amos, and I already have a statement on it, so I read it. God says it doesn't matter if you borrow yourself into Sheol. All these wealthy people, they have all of these special condominiums that are dug down deep into a mountain. Doesn't matter if you go up behind space, behind what's happening here, what you plan on doing to Earth with your satellites, and it doesn't matter if you dig down under the ocean. It does not matter. We are going to get you. As soon we'll get you. And I want to warn you about something, because before I went, it was then that summer, and I'm going to visit my parents in 2001. I have my daughter with me. It's August. I'm in Leo. And at that point, 9/11 had not happened yet. But I've already laid that prophecy out to the Law Society, that something is going to happen, and that I'm here for the Union of North America and to change the paradigm, the Adam and Eve story. My car had been a Mazda, and that Mazda, I think it was a 626, I can't remember. That Mazda was sort of like my former lawyer's, and my husband and I had it. There was, to make a long story short, the cruise control had stopped working, and I needed to go to Fredericton, New Brunswick, to Lodi, New York, in the Finger Lakes, with my daughter in the car. And I have sciatica and all kinds of things, and I have to drive by myself with Chelsea, going down there. She will be moving down there. I will be leaving her when I leave the education department. And I really could have used the cruise control. Months earlier, the cruise control, when I went in to have it checked, because it wasn't working then either, I'm going to get to the chase. I'm going to tell you how God works. The cruise control wasn't working. When I took it into the Mazda place, they said, oh, your cruise control isn't working. We're just going to move the wire out of the way. What you do with it later, we're moving it out of the way, and it's never going to work, so it's never going to be a problem. So we just move it without having to worry about doing anything else. So as I'm getting to the border outside of Woodstock, between the U.S. and Canada, right before I get to the U.S., I'm saying to God, when I turn off at Woodstock, going left, and I said, God, oh, I feel like I'm making a fool out of myself. I know I'm making a fool out of myself at the Law Society. Like, this is not what I want to do. I'm not there to make a fool out of myself. I'm there to get help. I'm there actually to call my lawyer out. I'm glad to get monetary I'm not there for this, and yet God has me there. And I say to God, in my mind, Chelsea's sitting there, and I say, what is the probability that the Law Society is going to deal with this and not just close the case and think I'm an idiot? And what comes back is, the probability is as great as you having cruise control on the car. And I say back, remember, I've had this thing with St. Paul and this discussions with God. And I said, I don't have cruise control. It's been moved. And it comes back, check. So I check, and I have cruise control. Now it's going to get really scary, because I have to take a deep breath. Well, I did praise the Lord. And I had cruise control after they moved it off. During the fall, there was this stupendous fiasco that went on at UAB and me when I witnessed the invalidation of the language arts assessment supporting the Francophone system. They failed me out of it. It was horrific. To make a long story short, because this is a cruise control statement. Chelsea is now living in the United States. I'm packing things up, fighting UMB, and still having my outstanding case, knowing that a war is probably going to happen. And I'm driving the same car. At this point, I still think I have cruise control. It's right after Christmas? No, right before Christmas. It's right before Christmas, and I'm driving down in 2001. I just figure I have cruise control now. I get up towards Woodstock and begin turning around the Woodstock area where we make the loop in New Brunswick, where you make a left and you head towards the US, and I hear the Drops of Jupiter song for Sagittarius. I'm a Sagittarian. I then go to the States, spend the holidays there, come back fighting UMB after New Year's. And as I come back in the same location, around the same location, the Drops of Jupiter song happens again. And as I come out of Woodstock, my cruise control sticks. And the car keeps accelerating. And I can't get it to D, and I'm riding my brakes, putting the car into neutral, turning it off, because anybody who knows this road knows there's nothing going on there at 1 o'clock in the morning. It's in winter, it's 1 o'clock in the morning, the cruise control is completely stuck. I am escalating as my car is pressing beyond 100 miles an hour. I'm riding my brakes, putting it into neutral. There's no place for me to pull over. There's no place for me to get help. I mean, I can pull over, but there's no place for me to go help. I am not ready to live in the back of the car in freezing cold weather. And I'm like in complete panic between there and getting myself to Fredericton. I'm riding my brakes, turning off my car. Every time I turn it back on, the car takes right off. And when I get it into Fredericton, and then I have it towed when I get into Fredericton, because I'm a member, because I didn't have a cell phone. I couldn't call the Canadian Automobile Association. When I got into Fredericton, I got to a place where I could call for the Canadian Automobile Association, and they then tied it to this place. And this was on the outskirts of Fredericton. And they towed it to the Mazda office. I have never, ever, I'm warning you. I'm telling you this because I'm warning you. When I got to the Mazda place, and I still have the receipt, I kept it. The man at the Mazda dealership, I had worn the pads basically right off the brakes. And the man at the service at the Mazda dealership said, "Your car never should have had any cruise control." When I explained what happened and what had happened, he said, "Never, ever should have had any cruise control. We moved that out of the way. There is no way that cruise control should have worked. So at this point, it has been completely removed. We completely removed the wire." And he said, "There's no way that should have ever worked." I ended up getting a new car because I couldn't justify going to. Now, to make a long story short, God told me that I would have cruise control for as long as I needed it for that period of time. I wasn't to take that. I guess I wasn't. Punctuated with the Drops of Jupiter comes back. The Drops of Jupiter was my theme song. That's when I knew things were going to happen with G4S. The Drops of Jupiter song was playing when I was signing my stuff, and I'd already seen who John Sully was. God sent it to me. I am letting you know, all the powers that be and all of you, that when God says, "I will get you," when you are under the ground, and I will get you when you are above, and I will get you wherever you are. They are not playing. This is not some Wi-Fi. We're going to dislodge you and play these games. They're going to get you. No matter where you go, it's going to happen. You're going to think you're snug as a rug and the rest of the world is falling apart and you're fine. I got news for you. They're going to get you. You will never be safe. And when you do, your next life will be the lowest thing and you will not be around your buddies. No matter where you go, the kingdom of heaven and not your Draco is in control. And by the way, Shamal is here to watch you fall, as is Apollo. And for those people who believe in the jinns, and I've read that they thought that the jinns were actually Hurrian women, given that you raped and pillaged them, they're just waiting to see what God does to you. No matter where you go, no matter what happens. Now, read about the hurricanes and all the other things that are happening, because they already know about it. And now I need to actually go out there and, God willing, make this happen. Not just because I don't have any money, but because that's what needs to happen now. It's time. But I had to warn you, because nobody is warning you about those satellites and all those other things. So those of you who believe that you're going to get away with this, don't ever think it's going to happen. Don't ever think that. Namaste. Before we leave, let's come out of this and take a peek. Let's see what the hand of God does. Boy, did Barack Obama hate this one. Let's see. When he found out, and all the Leos found out that this was the case, World War II, not Chamberlain. Chamberlain was a Pisces, but Winston Churchill, George V, Charles de Gaulle, Joseph Stalin, William Mackenzie King for Canada, Robert Gordon Mackenzie for Australia, all right, and Franco. All of them were for the Allies, and all of them were Sagittarians. Abraham Lincoln and FDR were Aquarian 3s, respectively. Here is the 4 link. This is all the hand of God that's going on there. All the hand of God. So when these guys decided to play on the 4 event, this is what God is saying. Not only is this come out of here, look at this. The etymology for lobster is locus. That's now Apollo. Apollo was put in there by Augustus for the 5th house. Apollo is no longer going to be in the 5th house. He's going out he's sharing the 4th house. The 4th house is not for Artemis. Artemis of Ephesus is not really, that's really about Hippo. And the Pantaleon, the moon is strongest in December and January. This is no longer going to be for the moon. This is now going to be for the locusts, and this is the 4th house. This is now the 4. There are only 2 places where a 4 can occur, and it's not going to be in the area that's Aquarius, because that's going to Newt. That's not a 4 event. In fact, ancient Rome, up until the Julian calendar, didn't even have a month for Aquarius. There was no February. There was no January. January only went into part of it as the 10th month. There was no month 11th and 12th. They didn't have a month. It was like no man's land. That didn't happen until the Julian calendar. But in terms of astrology, the spring equinox is really occurring in Pisces, and Pisces will no longer be called Pisces. It doesn't look like a fish, it looks like a womb or a chalice. So it's going to be the womb and chalice. The father sign, which is what you call Aries, Aries does not look like an Aries at all, but it looks like a ram. And no, it doesn't look like a ram, which was the age, that 2,000-year period. It looks like a penis and testicles, a small one. It's really small compared to the other zodiac signs. Most of the other zodiac signs, this is really small. And compared to the womb or a chalice, it's itty bitty. Okay? But if we start our ones for our numerology, Capricorn, which really does look like a cap or a cornucopia, depending upon how you do it, is not a goat sign either. It doesn't look at all like a goat. That's 1 or that's 10. That is now the 1 or the 10. That's where the sun begins to pick it up, or in Africa, that's where it's the strongest. 4 or 1, depending upon whether you're using the house. If it's the house, then it's the first house. And if you are talking about where it is in the year, it's the number 4. There's another place where 4 can ring, and that is in the area that is no longer going to be Cancer. It's going to be called Lobster. And you're going to remember that you can be torn apart into bits and pieces, just like that hand of God, pulled apart, because that's what we're doing to other animals. That's going to be called Lobster. That can be a 4 for the 4th house. 4, again, Aquarius will not be called Aquarius anymore. It can be called Newt. It can be called Haba. It's a water bearer. Nakabat, Newt. But it is not Aquarius. It's not a male homosexual. And it's not a 4. So I'm moving it over to where it actually belongs to. And that's where the hand of God, where the messages about Gabriel, where the issues from the Bible, that's the new weapon. And I have to reconfigure now. Okay, bye. I know this is abstract. Oh well.